livest live audience in all of Tampa Bay. We're in the studio vibing. Pastor Brian is in the building. Good morning.
Hey,
Good to see you.
How you doing?
And such an awesome opportunity we have throughout the week. But on Tuesdays and Thursdays, we reserve the time to reflect back on the word that was shared with us on Sunday. It's the attention that we give to what God is saying to us. We are people who are determined to be most blessed. And here we are. We want to welcome you to the virtual building. Thank you for being with us. Share the stream, whether you're watching via Facebook or YouTube. Share the stream with those you're connected with, your social media platforms. Go ahead and give a shout out in the chat. Drop something in the chat so we know that you are there and who you are. And maybe we can, go back and reach out to you. But let us know that you're there. And let's get into this message. The first message of our new sermon series, Beyond Good. Did you enjoy it? Did you enjoy the start? Did you enjoy the start? We're looking forward to all that is to come from this message series. But we started Sunday with trophies.
Trophies.
Yeah, trophies. And I don't know a believer whose favorite scripture ain't Ephesians chapter 3, verse 20. Right? So you took us all to just a sweet spot. But we're looking forward to this conversation and taking a deeper dive into Sunday's message.
Yes, sir.
So, anybody who's been following, Pastor Brian's patterns and his methods of delivering a message. This first message of sermon series, of a new sermon series, gives us an overview of what's to come. Really a good look. It's kind of like whetting our appetite for the things yet to come. And so, I guess in a brief way, can we just start there, talking about how good God is without being able to comprehend how good he is? Like, how do we even begin a conversation about how good God is when God is going to exceed our understanding?
Yeah. And so, the goal was to get to the end of Ephesians 3:20, right? We didn't make it all the way to the end, but we have lots of time in this series, so I didn't feel the need to keep going. But in there, the reason why that was set up front, right, is laying the foundation that, and Paul says it further, we'll read it this Sunday, is that the love of God is designed to be experienced.
Right.
It is something, the breadth, the width, the height, the depth of it, right? It's
That's
something
good.
that once you even think you have comprehended it, you haven't fully grasped it. And I like to say it this way: everyone, God has an experience designed for you.
Right.
God has a moment designed for you where it will be undeniable. It will be something, I love what my dad says, something that you can't be talked out of, something that you have seen for yourself. And it's through experience that we come to know the love God has for us. And so it really was setting up the foundation to say, hey, listen, when you start to think about how good God's been, you're not thinking about stuff you're thinking about moments you've seen him.
That's good.
You're thinking about times where you didn't think things were going to go the way they went, but you knew it was God himself. And so that's what just takes, just the words from you. That's what just takes you to a place of just awe and reverence, is because you start thinking about the experiences.
Yeah.
And someone has seen God and has had an encounter with God, is when they start talking about his love, they start thinking about moments.
Right.
Not thinking about things or start just saying stuff, right? But you can see that they're going back and they're remembering a moment. They're remembering a time. And that's exactly what Paul was writing, that God has an experience waiting on you. And I believe for all of us in this series that God has an experience waiting on us. He has an experience that just going to be undeniable.
That's good.
Right.
And those serve as moments of connection, because as you just lead us into the message, we are thinking about moments where we've experienced God, and I'm confident enough to say that many of us have had experiences where God exceeded our expectation. As we even think about as we think about our future,
Yeah.
we have the benefit of looking back on moments where we thought we were trapped into, and this is a point that was in that introductory part of the message, moments where we thought we were stuck in the result of our decisions.
Yeah.
But God works. God's not in that same box.
Yeah.
God isn't even working out of that same box. He has an
Right.
infinite number of alternate routes or
Yeah.
tools to move us past even the results of our own decisions.
Yeah. And I think that, I think that's universally like just something that is we all experience.
Mhm.
Like we've all I mean have fallen and come short of the glory of God, right?
Right.
We've all made some bad decisions.
Right.
And said some things we shouldn't have said. We've all done it.
Right.
And so it takes a humility, and you see all that all throughout Ephesians where Paul is talking about himself, like, who am I, right?
Yeah.
And it's because you realize, like, man, I really, like, I did that.
Yeah.
Like, I said that.
Right.
And it's in that moment where you realize, man, I'm not all that I imagine I can be.
Mm-hmm.
And just the realness, or I should say, just accepting that it's like, it's amazing when you think, but God's still messing with me, because you're living in between the reality of your, we have I like to say, Paul says, we have this great treasure in fragile clay jars. Like you're seeing your frailty, but at the same time experiencing His goodness,
right?
And that's where it's just like
mind blowing.
It's mind blowing,
right?
Right.
You talked about how we're conditioned through our world, through culture. Culture shapes us to think a certain way. Like we're limited to the results of our decisions. Like we learn that from.
Listen, not only are we limited to the results of our decisions, we're controlled by the decisions of others in our lives.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't know which is worse.
Right.
But culture teaches both.
Right.
Right. That not only are you limited by your decisions, but you also are limited by the decisions of people around you. Mm-hmm. Both in which we see God using all of it. I'm just throw back to the last series, right? But that is complete, and that's where you fall to your knees, right?
Right.
Because you think about what you did, yet you still here. You think about what they did, yet it's still, and you're like, this is crazy.
Right.
Like I don't have any words to explain this, but God, right?
And that's what makes it so beautiful, right?
It does.
Even in this moment right here, it's the struggle to wrap our minds around God still using us, God still doing what He will do when we are aware of our condition.
When you are aware, right?
That is mind blowing.
And you, of course, the Bible tells us, and you find out that He's not counting that against you, right?
Right.
And the day you realize that He's not counting that against you,
right?
Like, man, it just takes your breath away,
right?
Like, wow. But not because you heard it. And I'm not expecting people to get their breath taken away because they heard it. Mm-hmm. My point is, God has an experience. The people whose breath is taken away is because they've had the experience.
Right.
Right. It's not just taught to them no more. Right. Mm-hmm. For some people, they just hearing it and it'll make you rejoice and all that type of stuff. Mm-hmm. But man, some of these folks, some of the people in the room, and I had to go back and listen to the message. I was trying to figure out what people kept telling me they was crying. Right. And then I was like, why they was crying?
At what point? Right.
Right. Then I forgot I was crying. Right. Yeah. And so it's so like I was crying, man.
Why were they crying?
Well, they were just saying, and I wasn't, that wasn't, I rarely in a new sermon series write the intro. Like I rarely write what I'm going to actually say when I first get up there. Mm-hmm. And this Sunday was the same way. So there was no like, before I read this first scripture, I'm going to say these things. Mm-hmm. No, I was like, man, God, whatever it is that you're going to say, like I'll just meet you there. Mm-hmm. And so, the intro of the service, the intro to the series, like you say, was, man, it really did it. And it wasn't until late, like Sunday evening, where God was like, Brian, no, I'm saying there's no gap that I can't make up for.
Right.
There's no amount of wrong that my right can't sufficiently make up for. Like when I'm saying I can do exceedingly abundantly above all you can think, ask, or imagine. Like like from Sunday night to Sunday morning till I stood up on the stage, all I could see was God saying, you know, for certain people, like that's like they're talking about, man, I got this dream and God can do better than I can dream. But man, like
right.
there's people I know, even from myself, there was places in my very own life where I was like, man, I don't know, man. And God was telling me, Brian, I said I can do it when you can't even think it. Right. When you can't even dream like of like it's just sometimes it's just a lot.
Yeah.
It's just a lot sometimes.
So people were connecting, and the emotion that was expressed was realizing or reflecting on moments when they thought this was it. They didn't see it out.
Right.
And God came.
Right. And sometimes, and I, you know, not to leave it vague, right? Man, I was fully prepared in my head to walk into a hot sanctuary on Sunday.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and man, like, you gotta understand, right? It's Easter Sunday, and the AC is broke.
Right.
You know, like, like why?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like certain stuff is just like, why?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you know, and I'm living off everything I say. Just know that too, right? And so, you know, like. Wood, you know, he's coming. He's like, Pastor, the guy came and looked. Deacon Underwood, he comes and he's like, man, the guy look and he can get the ACs. It's gonna take him 2 days. I was like, can he do it before Sunday? Can he?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just trying to figure it out. And it's like he got them, but like installing 2 ACs before Sunday is you talking about that's a lot. That's a miracle, right? And so So I'm like, man, it's gonna be hot, right? but I walk in there, man. I was like, man, it ain't hot,
right?
You know, and I'm just saying something, just like
something real.
Just like you're sitting there, like, man, like, like wow, like I couldn't even think of a cool sanctuary, right? I couldn't even. I was like, man, this. I'm tired of this. To be honest with you, I'm tired of these ACs. Like, you know. Half of me is looking at like these new renderings of this and these new this, and then in other moments this thing is breaking unexpectedly. That thing, like, and I'm saying these things because that's life,
right?
Right. That and I don't ever want people like it. Listen, and that's where the word of God starts speaking to you,
right?
Because sometimes. Man, it's like there's, man, I'm over here, Pastor Lamar, but anyway, but there's always something that's going to try to taint your good.
Yeah.
Like, I've just come to realize, like, in our heads, we think we're going to get to this place to where there's nothing there that's going to taint the good. But I've found that there's always something there that's trying to taint the good.
Right. Yeah.
And you just learn that, no, you just refuse and learn that it's your refusal to ever allow anything to taint the good that God's doing.
Yeah.
Like it actually, you have to change your mind. And you have to say like, I'm just not going to do it. Like it's just like, I refuse to go there.
Right.
And,
let me make this point. This was a point from the message, and then I'll share another one that will lead us further in the conversation. One, you can't imagine good while looking through the lens of your current circumstance or looking through the lens of your bad decisions. It's hard.
Yeah.
That won't lead you to God's good, right? And then the point of this series, you shared, the point of this series is us having a confident expectation that God is going to exceed your expectations. Like that's the work in this series.
Yeah. And I said this piece too, right? Where I said, you know, we're going to talk about these 4 core things because everything else is honestly water under the bridge. Like, I've come to learn, and I believe, you know, when Paul says he's learned to be content, it's because he actually focused on what mattered.
Okay.
Like he focused on what mattered.
Right.
And whenever we lose focus, it's hard to stay in
Absolutely.
faith, right?
Mhm.
Because man, it's a decision you got to make
Mhm.
that like I'm not gonna do it, right? I'm just not going to allow um, that one missing point to drag down all the good that's taking place.
That's good.
Like you have to actually make that decision.
Right.
Like the thought that you're gonna encounter a moment where there's not gonna be something that is there to try to just
Wow.
cast doubt over the good.
Right.
Like that's
You're setting yourself up.
you're setting
for
yourself up.
disappointment.
You're actually
Mhm.
developing a horrible mentality.
Mhm.
First of all, that's an unhealthy mentality too, right? If we're talking about mental health, that's not healthy,
Mm.
right? What is healthy is to think on these things,
Mm.
right? The
good.
Bible tells us, think on whatever's pure, whatever's noble, what is worthy of praise. Like these things aren't just said out of coincidence,
Right.
right? I know God knows more than we even understand what we will have to see with our eyes at times. But he's given us the mentality so that no matter what our eyes see, we don't forget what he said, right?
Right.
And man, but that's the real war of life.
Right.
I'm not
That's
talking
the
about
faith.
Beyond Good yet,
But
that's the real war of
that's right.
life, right?
That's good.
That
Faith life. Mhm.
you know that you know how to focus on what God is saying is valuable in this moment.
Mhm.
And man, like and Satan's job is to try to make everything that's not valuable seem
Highlight
as
it.
though it's everything.
Right.
Like we already know we're trophies, right? The victory's only been won. The only like he's a defeated foe, right? The anyway. I'll
That's
let you
good.
go to it.
But that's absolutely I think that's the undercurrent of the message. You talked about, this may be a jump ahead, but
Yeah.
what you're laying out, even God telling us to focus on these things. Like that's his wisdom.
Yeah.
So those who apply to that wisdom can escape the corruption that everybody else is walking in.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. Through the precious promises of God, we escape the corruption of this world, right? And the thing about it is which I'm incredibly excited about this series, but one thing that we most certainly, just laid the foundation on Sunday is it's through God's infinite wisdom. It's through his infinite wisdom. It's through the variety of his wisdom
Right.
that we are going to get beyond good.
Yeah.
It's through the application of like what he said. Something we've been saying. When we attend to what God has revealed, we are most blessed. Like,
Right.
and man, there's certain things God just tells you not to think about.
Yeah. Y'all missed y'all cue, but it was most blessed. You said it silently. Okay. All right. But that's the merger. I saw a merger of 2 points on Sunday. One, the buildup of God will exceed your expectations. God always has a way to get us to good. But then also what it means to be the church.
Yeah.
And in Ephesians 3, the contract, right? There are 2 parts. There are always 2 parts to the contract. There's always multiple parties. There's always 2 parts to play. And so even as we're talking right now, I hear those things being laid out. Like God will always get you to good. God always has routes to good. But then there's this part, or there's a why. Why is God wanting to get you to good? And this is where we are called, and Paul asked us to be the church.
Right. And I'm so excited about that, right? And we hear it all the time, right? Like, man, you gotta, you should be the church. We are the church. Be the church, and it's, all of it's true, But I believe, for this is what we're going to be focused on, right? I just hate when stuff is just generically said, right? And so when we talk about being the church, we're gonna be talking about being the church is also applying God's wisdom to your life. Like making that decision is being the church. Like making the decision to put God's wisdom on display is you deciding to be the church. Like being the church isn't this just generic thing. There's actually some details here, right? But a part of that, this word you said around me a whole lot, but people don't say it no more. But a part of that prong, right, is the fact that putting his wisdom on display is an attribute of being God's church.
Got it.
And so we
Okay.
we are going to focus on that, right? For this series. We know it means being loving, and we know it means all types of stuff, right? But for this series, we're going to talk about putting his wisdom on display. We're going to be the church by putting his wisdom on display, because when his wisdom is put in practice, right? That's what the contract's about. Is it takes us beyond good, exceedingly abundantly above what we can think, ask, or imagine. But it takes us saying that for whatever area, whatever place in our lives that that God says is valuable for his kingdom and valuable to him, saying, I'm gonna do what God says should be done in this place.
Right.
Right. I'm gonna do it
That's
God's
good.
way in
Right.
this spot.
Right.
Right. Not because of whatever reason, but because, I want to be God's church.
Right.
Right. I want to put God's church on display through my finances, through my marriage. I want to put God's church on display. And that's simply saying I want to put his wisdom on display. I want to show how smart God is.
Right.
I want to show how wise God is. I want to show that off.
Right. Which leads to a big point today, right? Maybe not just today. Maybe people have been doing this for a long time, but it's definitely obvious today that we search for information, and we are such consumers, right?
Right.
And the challenge with the church and that type of mindset is that too often we choose all these other alternative over God's way.
Yeah. And I always get like a lot of flack when I say stuff like that, but whatever. The thing is, and I'm just being details, right? People like, well, Pastor Brian, you said that you read books, and you're talking about just the Bible, like Bible or books. Well, here's my thing. This is really the harder point.
Right.
Is because I read the Bible, I can read a book.
Right.
The problem is you're not reading the Bible, you're just reading the book.
Right.
So you don't know when the book contradicted the Bible.
Yeah.
Right? I can read the book because I read the Bible.
Right.
So I know when the book contradicted the Bible.
Right.
The problem is you're reading the book before the Bible.
Yeah.
So you don't know when the book contradicted the Bible.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that books are unsafe. It's just you haven't prioritized the Bible or the gospel in a way that when you read books, you know how to chew the meat and spit out the bone.
Right.
Right. And so that's the whole point. Is it's not, man, there's so many people.
Yeah.
They'd be so deep that it's ridiculous. Like, there's so many books that will inspire you, encourage you, that were written through inspiration that people got from God and through things that they saw. And that's awesome. My thing is, you can't start reading those books until you read this one.
Got it.
Because you won't know when that has contradicted this.
Yeah.
And and so I feel like certain stuff just don't need to be said, but I guess it does. Right. And it's like, no, that's the point, right? Like we said from the beginning that this is, to me, and you're right, everything works in layers, right? It really does. That we said that we're going to contend. And we said to contend, we have to know, not we're contending for the faith, which is our shared truths and beliefs. That means we have to know what our shared truths and beliefs are, which means that this year we are prioritizing knowing what the Bible said.
Yeah.
Right? Like, man, once you know what the Bible has said, then, man, like, it's awesome. It's beautiful. There's all types of stuff. But, man, you done read 50 books, and you don't know. You ain't even read Ephesians yet.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Not without trying to. It's an opening series, sermon series, trying to make sure people come back. Right? So, you're not trying to. But I'm just saying.
Right. Let's go.
And so, man, like, I mean, come on, right? My father wrote over 30 books that were inspired from the book. And so books are powerful. Books are good. Reading is fundamental. Like all this stuff is great. But if you ain't read the book, and that's my point, you won't know when that book has left the path.
Yeah.
and now you get led astray. Now you're dealing with some materials that don't come with God's blessing on it, right? I'm just saying, like, you know, if you go on, you got 10 steps of this, right? That just means your effort matters here, right?
That's good.
Where God's saying His grace matters with His,
right?
Your effort matters with theirs,
right?
Right? And you got to ask yourself, are you tired?
Yeah.
You know, that was the whole invitation. If you're tired, then stop reading things that require your effort to work, and start reading things that require His grace to empower it.
That's good.
Like you gonna start relaxing.
Yeah.
Because you are yielding more to effort needed ways.
Right.
Like it requires your effort for this to work.
Yeah.
And that's why you're tired.
That's good.
God's way doesn't require your effort. It requires His grace.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
and if
good.
you think that God's not gonna allow His grace to work in a place where He doesn't want your effort at, and that's the whole point. Right? If he allowed
that's good. I feel more relaxed right now.
It's like that's the indication. You're tired. That means somewhere in my life I'm not experiencing the rich variety of His wisdom.
That's good. Yeah. That's good.
And I need to stop. And I need God, I'm here. Waiting on my experience. Like that's, you know, just as much as sensing God's we can sense God's presence. But we need to become just as sharp at sensing His absence.
That's good.
Right?
Right.
And you know, nowhere in here, you know, pointing my laptop, but I mean Bible, right? Nowhere in there does it says, and you will be tired, right? You know, but everywhere, come, I have some rest. I have some rest for you, you know, and I just, anyway, I'm excited about it, Pastor Lamar. Anything else over there you want me to?
No, that's good. That's good. I think that's good. Y'all think it's good? That was good. Beyond good. There we go. Beyond good. Beyond good. And that's a good lead into the rest of the week. Tomorrow is a valuable Wednesday. We're going to hear from a protector of the way tomorrow.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I want to call it out. I think I know who's going to be teaching. Somebody want to? Miss Bertha. That's awesome. Did I say it right? Okay, that's good. So join us tomorrow for the Valuable Wednesday. We'll catch you in the chat. We look forward to sharing that time together. I enjoy hearing from the protectors of the way and their wisdom. People who've done this, people who've had many experiences with seeing God's faithfulness, and they share those experiences with us. So we're all strengthened by them, right? We overcome by the blood of the Lamb and the word of our testimony. So Valuable Wednesday gives us opportunity to hear the testimonies of those who walk this walk, live this life for many years. So we look forward to catching you in the chat. And then Wednesday is halfway to the weekend. The weekend is coming. And we look forward to seeing you in the building in person for service as we continue this message series, Beyond Good. Know that we love you. Till then, continue to be people who are most blessed. Enjoy your day.
You have lifted us out of despair, unto you I cry. Eternal wonders are remains. Forever we sing, we sing.
Never let me down, never let me down. And so my life is completely surrendered. Never let me down, never let me down. And so my life is completely yours. Never let me down, never let me down. And so my life is completely surrendered. Never let me down, never let me down. And so my life is completely yours. This life can be a theme park with a long line. Swipe card with a decline. Amazon with no prime, but my worship is by design. Solid you, oh Lord. No better days I've ever seen. You adopted me, oh Lord. Now thanking you is my routine. I promise you I'll scream this forever. Out of all my days, there's never been one better. Every moment I wake up is another moment I break up. With my flesh, I'm serious. Baby, matter of fact,
blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame, but wholly lean on Jesus' name. My hope is built on nothing less than Jesus' blood and righteousness. I dare not trust the sweetest frame,